Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's talk. Um, Let me just check if there's anybody in the waiting room. So since there's nobody in the waiting room right now and it's 10:30, so we will begin with our talk. So let me introduce to you a little bit about what today's talk is about. So typography, calligraphy, some typography is a small sharing session where graphic designer and 2018 alumnus David Ho shares his adventures into new mediums and disciplines and realizes that graphic design is just a small dot sitting in the middle of one big Venn diagram. So let me introduce David to you now. David Ho is a graphic designer with an affinity for type design, paper engineering, and vernacular signage. Upon graduating from the Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Communication Design program in Taylor's University in 2018, he has worked with several design studios and is currently working with Fictionist Studio. With a diverse range of clients, David has designed integrated brand identities, packaging systems, paper mechanisms, typefaces, and logotypes for clients big and small, such as KSK Land, Licky Chan, Tiffin at the Yard, and Mossery. He is also a part of Huruf Collective, a type collective that seeks to encourage awareness and discourse of typography in Malaysia. Huruf is active in organizing workshops and talks to facilitate knowledge exchange among type enthusiasts, such as the recent Gogo Glyphs event at Taylor's University. So today, he shares a few of his projects, giving a special peek into the inspiration and processes behind the designs, and a few lessons that he has learned along the way. So without further ado, I pass the floor to Dave. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, guys. Hope you guys can hear me. So yeah, I'm David. Let me give you an introduction. This is me. In 2018, I studied under Mr. Venn when he still had hair. It's a very exciting time. So I had an internship with Huruf and Ijin, which was like two studios side by side. So this is basically where my foundations of learning to do type design, typography, graphic design, even like in a professional setting. So this is like a very key learning point here. I graduated in 2018. That's me. I'm aware that this year's final year exhibition is also going to be at Can Gallery. So this was in Can Gallery too. So yeah, this was 2018. Then right after graduation, I freelanced for a little bit. I freelanced for I think like half a year. I collaborated with different designers, different small studios. It was a really steep learning curve because it's I had no idea how to manage clients. I didn't know how to invoice people. So it was a steep learning curve. Then I decided to, okay, I need to learn proper foundations. So I joined a studio called Studio MMCMM, which is quite an established studio that does publications, art books, branding, etc. It's been around for like 15, 16 years. So I really got to know all the how to do it, the industry standards, how to do Pantones and stuff, paper swatches, etc. Then in sorry, which year is this? This thing's blocking me. Okay. In 2020, I joined Fictionist Studio, where I'm still at. So this is my team. We need a better team photo, really, but this is my team, and we've been working together, coming up with lots of different projects, kind of pushing envelopes a little bit, and yeah. So today I want to share with you some teachings I've learned through some of my more type-based projects. So meaning usually is in a word mark, or sometimes as a corporate typeface, and like these are just some of the things that I learned, and I'm just going to share some of my process and how I do it. So okay, I'm just titling some of it just to organize it in my head. But there are yeah. So this is number one. So sometimes simple works. Okay. So let me share with you this project we had. This slide is empty. Then we come into here. So for my dissertation, in tailors, everything is sort of connected. For my dissertation in tailors, I did something about angular typefaces and perception on taste. So one of the core literature is this one by, sorry, this bar is blocking me. I cannot see who it is. Baraneta, that's right. Baraneta, who did this experiment on people. They showed people two photos of things. One is more angular, one is more round, and asked people to choose, which one do you like more? This is a very arbitrary question, like, what do you like more? So more people like the round one, and because it's, it's comfortable, people liked it. This is another one by Velasco. This was like quite fundamental because it's type related. So you can see that they sort of put more rounded typefaces on cups and more angular typefaces on cups, and ask the people to rate what kind of taste they expect. So for example, the rounded, like, do you think it's salty? Is a salty drink or like a sour drink? Or like the angular one, is it more sweet, bitter? And the results were that the angular typefaces were perceived as more it's more bitter and salty, whereas the sweet ones were the round ones. Sorry, the graph is a little intimidating, but yeah, that's basically it. Angular is perceived as more sour, round is more sweet. So my point is ice cream. What do you think of ice cream? Because generally, for me, it's a soft thing. It's not intimidating. It's comfortable. It's mushy. It's a safe space. But so we look at like different brands in the market, like for example, these two, and they like using rounded-ish fonts, more gentle fonts, and it sort of correlates to the research that says that the roundness is sort of ties in with the sweet flavor, etc., etc. So when this client came that was asking for a brand that's edgy, unconventional, because they sold ice cream flavors that were pretty whack. So they wanted something that's not conventional. So I think the simplicity of the idea comes in that we are not making it soft and cute. That's it. So of course we will do a word mark for this, and we wanted to make a word mark that has no curves. Curves are not allowed in this branding, illegal. So I was like, we were struggling to make like how to draw the C properly to make it look like a C without the curves. We did a lot of different options here. So this is how I do it. I make a lot of options, and then like I get people to choose and see what they feel, because sometimes because I worked on it, I can't really have an objective eye to it. So it's always good to ask people what they think. So you can see here, the top one was like really like blocky. Then I added a bit more slant to it. So the counters are sharper. So it does give it that literal edge. This here, how much do I slant? Do I slant this L, that A? So like little things like that, which kind of affect the whole feel of the word mark. So at this point, I'm like doubting myself a bit. Okay, what if I should add some curves? It's making me uncomfortable. You can see some curves here. It's like, okay, see, it's happier now. It's less sharp. But what I learned is also that even though it's uncomfortable, it doesn't mean it's a bad route. You just need to stay true to what your initial message is. And yeah, it may not be comfortable, but you know, it's life. So yeah, even this thing, that the way the C kind of curls in a bit, that's quite fun. So okay, so the final logo, we ended up with this Nikki-chan. So very, very sharp, yeah, it's dangerous. Do not touch it. So it's not really used as much as I would like in their branding, but I do have a complete character set for this. It's, of course, it's amateur, it's quite hastily done, but it's it came in useful for some of the collaterals. So let me show you how it was the end product here. Yes, of course, ice cream brand needs packaging. So I also developed the packaging for this. I think one of the more iconic things about Licky Chan is their collar with the cone with a collar. Yeah, so we had that. We had a square cup, which at first, again, I was very uncomfortable. Like, well, come on, I mean, the cup should be round. It's easier to scoop, but they wanted it unconventional and sharp. So yeah, why not? So it's square. Everything's like really sharp and angular. And the typeface, having a strong word mark helps a lot because you can just slap it on and boom, that's your branding. Simple. What else? There we go. The pick your lick. That's the example of like the typeface in application. Other characters. Wow. The box as well, we developed from scratch because yeah, it's no one really makes boxes this way. It's surprisingly challenging to make a box like this with a handle. Yeah. So this is, and it also got made into steels, rusted steel, cotton steel, I think they call it. Yeah, so I'm really happy that how this turned out because it's I see so many people enjoying this. It's a very prominent edgy ice cream brand these days. And yeah, it makes me happy to see like my letters shown in this being featured in their all these influencers posts and stuff. So yeah, this is where the type is hero. I'm all for it. Yeah, so the second project I'm going to share is this. It's about finding beautiful intersections. Okay, yeah, let me just jump into it. Basically, this client is a data-driven city planning technology firm. They make software that help plan cities. They crunch data. They very very complicated things which I don't really understand, but they're doing good stuff. So we started looking at cities, the whole idea of cities and their structures, how they look, how they feel. And I was reminded of this picture. I think like some of you might have seen it before. So this too, I think it's quite famous. So the thing with these two pictures is that they look kind of like the same, but the thing on the left is a brain neuron, the connections between your brain that kind of forms who we are. And the one on the right is the universe, actually. So you can see like this beautiful parallels between the really, really micro and the really, really macro, the big scale of things. You can see this in a lot of things too, like cities and leaves and yeah, there's that really nice videos about it. You can just YouTube it. Sorry. So we sort of saw the parallel between cities, between the macro of it and the micro of it, how they sort of have what we call a recursive pattern, meaning that, so you see the picture on the far right is actually a mathematical thing called a fractal. So a little bit into fractals. This is becoming a math talk, so I'm hijacking it. It's not a design talk anymore. Sorry, guys. No, this is going to be short. So this is a recursive fractal, basically that the more you zoom in, and it's like it repeats itself. The pattern repeats like infinitely. This is very interesting. Like mathematicians love this, and there are a lot of kinds of fractals going on. So a simple one that we found is this thing called a Sierpinski's triangle. It's really fun because okay, so the logic is that it always divides itself into three. So like the first, okay, I can use my mouse here. The first one becomes the 3, and then it goes 9, goes 27, so on, so on, so on to infinity. So the fun thing about this is it always, even though it's like maybe it's in its 100th iteration with like thousands of holes or millions of holes, but it never reaches 0. So that's always a little bit of area. Anyway, yeah, so that's a Sierpinski's triangle. There's one type of fractal, but we also found this fractal, which there we go, a Pythagoras tree, which as a graphic designer, this is like, oh, okay, this is pretty. I like this because it's, it's squares, it's neat, it's happy. So again, you can see the logic here. I have an animation here, which kind of makes sense of this. You can see how the branch out things, the cubes branch, sorry, the squares branch out and it branches out again. So it becomes this sort of like tree shape. It's happy, it's nice. So I wanted to incorporate this idea of fractals into the word mark itself, because of course, like it's a nice story. It has like fractals, big, micro, macro. So we began like exploring like how to incorporate this into, okay, not just the word mark, but also the graphic system. So like we try a lot of things like this, how whack do you go, how much do you break the logic, because like here, this rectangle is not exactly a Pythagoras tree, but then again, it's typed. So it's inspired, it's not a replication. So that's something that also needs to be clear when you start a project, like how faithful to the source do you need to be, or are you just like inspired by it, which is also which is good, that way you create new things. So yeah, so we tried making like letter forms out of it, and it's like, oh, okay, it's quite edgy, it's quite interesting, and it has a little bit of that technological feel, like pixels and fractals. It's a beautiful story, I think. So this is what we ended up with, KSK City Labs. Yes, we went through a lot of iterations to make it legible. Of course, we had some compromises here. You can see the K, we just made it more conventional for legibility. Sometimes you just have to give it up because, end of the day, people have to read it. So this is that. And again, as usual, my hands were itchy, so I made like more characters. This is more for a website, because this their main collateral was a website. People are going to access their brand through the website. So I made like the headers for it. Yeah. So let me show you the website itself. It looks like this. My colleagues made this. It's amazing. But you can see how this Pythagoras tree sort of logic extends, not just in the typeface, but also the graphic system, the layout systems. So you can see how it's being used as a framing device here, the very interesting layout, a little like graphic element here. Oh, that's my portfolio. There we go. Yeah. And it's even a little button here, which is quite cute. So yeah, I think having like that strong story also helped, like just unify the entire brand together, gives it a very distinct look. And of course, having a typeface helps too. So you can just typeset anything and say, oh, okay, that's KSK City Lab. That helps too. You could probably animate this too, but yeah. Okay, how am I for time? Oh, good. Okay, so number 3, I'm moving more into the tactile side of things, because I think after graduation, somehow I've gotten a bit more interested in paper construction, more technical stuff. So, or rather, I've been given more opportunities to explore that there. So material matters is, let me show you about this. So this is about a Chinese New Year festive gift pack and campaign. So this was this year, 2022. So this was right, they wanted things to be easy to mail, because everything's through mail these days. So that was like quite the key thing. It needs to be easy to mail, and because it's Chinese New Year, it needs to be festive, and because it's Fictionist Studio, it has to be surprising and wow. Of course, all clients want wow. We never settle. Anyway, so there's this mechanism that I've been quite interested in. It's called, some people call it a carousel book. So basically, when you open this book, the pages don't open fully. So you can see like this outer white layer sort of constrains the angle of opening of this thing. And by varying the length of this, they add layers to it, and it creates like a little layered paper cut, or rather a tunnel book, something like that. So there are very interesting ways to do this, and I was very interested in this format because it is flat packed and you can open it up. It becomes, oh, it's quite decorative. And I wanted to merge this with a bit of Chineseness, so like try to make this into a lantern, and also sort of merge it with a Chinese wooden screen. It's weird. I'm just like plucking random things because Chinese New Year, there's only like this pool of things that you can pluck from, and like with everyone doing it so intensely, it's you sort of run out after a while. But yeah, it's a challenge, you know. It's the way you combine things that sometimes makes it very creative. So again, so this carousel book, trying to merge with this thing. So I did a lot of prototyping, and there we go. Yeah, so I did a lot of prototyping for the lantern itself. I could make it really cute and round. I could make it like a tapered thing. I could make it open. This was deep within the MCO, and we were all stuck at home. So I had to like show my boss like, oh, it looks like this over like blurry video. It was not easy doing physical work like this over remote working, but hey, we made it work. So I think I have a video. It should autoplay. There we go. Oh, the sound. I don't want the sound. Here we go. Okay. So like this is a video of me showing my boss what kind of mechanism this is. So again, the math from previously, all the fractal stuff and my interest in math and geometry sort of play in here. You can see how you need like that sort of calculation to get the angles, to get the roofs were interesting too, because they don't open flat, they open a little bit like this. And yeah, I needed to test this a lot because it's the paper reacts differently sometimes. And yeah, what else do I have here? Yes, so remember in this thing I had like a lot of holes. No, go back. Yeah, see, there are like little panels there with holes. So that can't do. I wanted to have a sort of the Chinese screen concept again. And again, infusing it with typography, because that's what I do. I do type. So we explored like a lot of ways to abstract Chinese characters into a wooden screen format. So we play a lot with the grids and stroke weight, the density of the lines to make it look relatively even. And this came with a very interesting challenge, because you could not have a line smack in the middle of this character. So in this is the later version. So you see, all my lines sort of need to stay clear from the middle part, because that is where it falls, right? So it's very important to also keep in mind, again, where your design is ending up and what are the limitations of that medium, that format. And I think that also introduces a lot of quirks and I think beauty in a way. There's beauty in like limitations to a certain extent. So yeah, these were like the final type Chinese characters that we put on the lantern. So it's like in Chinese, it's 八方来财, 八面掌落. It's like 8 fortune from 8 directions, and happy expansion in 8 sides. I'm not very good in Chinese, but that's the gist of it. So yeah, we ended up with something like this. This is a video from the client. They did a little stop motion. We had ang paos to it. There are 8 of it tucked in front. Then you open it up. It's like, oh, yay. Sorry, that was a bit fast. I'm gonna play it again in case it's laggy or whatnot. So yeah, this was very fun. So it took a lot of mock-ups and tries. And so right after I finished this, my boss tells me, that's great, but we need an installation now. I was like, what? How? So so my boss is like, yeah, let's just blow up the lantern. Let's make it human size. I was like, what? So this really like pushed my limits a little bit because I have no experience making large scale installations. So I just did how I would approach it in my way. I made a scale model. This is like a scale model 1 to 100, I think 1 to 10. Put little people around, showed it to the client. Unfortunately, I don't have photos of that. And it's really whack because we actually made it in person. We were like wrestling with the contractors, wrestling with this, what material, what's good, what's not. And yeah, we had to coordinate this. It's really fun. It's really nice to see the typography like that big, literally like a human size. Yeah, and the fun thing is that they had some musical performances inside of the lantern, and like people watched from the outside. This was in their like sales gallery, and we made the flowers up there too. That was also very painful, but again, good to use your hands. And yeah, I'm really quite happy of how this turned out again. It's also about embracing unexpected like ways your type appears. I think that's some of the interesting things about designing type, because you may intend it for some use, but more often than not, it ends up being used in ways that you never expected, but hey, it looks pretty good. So yeah, that's the surprising fun thing about doing type. Yeah, so speaking of surprises, yes, so this project is special because it's quite close to me as well. It was one of the first projects I worked on in Fictionist. So Fictionist Studio they make their own ang paos every year. So they've made it in like 2019, 2020. And when I joined in 2020, I had to make the 2021 festive packet. And usually that involves a bit of interactive paper element to it. So one day my boss walks in and she says that, hey, okay, we want to do something with the cow, the zodiac animal of that year. And it needs to be like a jack in a box in a box. She loves her rhymes, so she was immediately sold. It's like, yes, we have to do this. And she drew this sketch here. This is her sketch. It's a box with a little cow jumping out. Yeah, so that's that. And she wanted like a jack in a box format. And I thought, I feel like it can be more elegant, could be elevated. So I remembered something that I watched on YouTube. See, watching random YouTube videos pay off. It's good. There's this thing called a penguin bomb, designed by this, of course, a Japanese guy. Let me just show you. Yeah, it's like witchcraft. I was like, whoa, how did you do this? So I spent like I spent like a few weeks kind of analyzing and sort of reverse engineering the logic behind it. So and I sort of got it. So the secret is there is a bit of a rubber band inside that gives it that tension, and there's a little lock that holds it flat. So the moment you drop it, it hits that lock, it releases it, and it bounces into shape. So I sort of did a lot of tests. I adapted it to a cow format first. Unfortunately, back then I did not think to document my process that much. So guys, please document your process. It's fun, it's important, it's good to show. So yeah, but these are some of the like 50 iterations I think that I had. So yeah, so I ended up with a form that's something like this. So there's like a rubber band running through the vertical, and it kind of like pulls it all together and it holds. So finding the right amount of tension, right, the right size to let the rubber band stretch enough. And then the rubber band has like variance in tensions as well. So you have to account for that sort of range. So it becomes a little bit more technical. It became a bit more like engineering in a way, which kind of surprised me that I can do this in a graphic design job, even though I'm a designer, but I still can explore this side of things, which is very exciting to me. So yeah, this is the form. Yeah, so I needed again type. I wanted to put type on each. Sorry, I shouldn't be pointing. I should use my cursor. Yes, on each panel of the ox, I wanted it to be like full of type, so that it's quite arresting and it's a typographic cow. Who could say no? So I tried to draw type that is represented that elasticity of the rubber band, the boinginess. Yeah, I usually like to sketch physically first, because when it comes to digital sketching, I get very pedantic. I get like, oh, curves, make sure it's good, make sure it's that. And I spend way too much time. So this is faster. I did it here first, and then I scanned it, threw it on the Photoshop, I think. Yes, these are like more sketches. I printed it out. Printing out helps when it comes to type, because you get to analyze the black and white of it without the screen glare. Because sometimes the screen's glare also kind of affects the perception of the white, because it kind of glows, it kind of bleeds. If you have astigmatism, or I don't know. Print it out. It's good. It's fun. You feel so legit when you print it out. So yeah, this is I mapped out the type on each of the bodies. So it's the fun bit of this was kind of swapping the type to fit that shape, which is unconventional, but very doable when it comes to Chinese fonts, which is Chinese lettering, which is very fun. So you can see over here, I'm using a Photoshop to do this, because it gives me a little bit more control and I can warp it. I can't do that on paper. It's just easier. So don't be limited by, like, if people say, oh, sketching is better on paper or sketching is better digitally. But just find your own way, find the best way of doing it. There's no one way, whatever's fastest for you. So this is what we plotted out. This is glyphs. I know you guys are using Font Lab, but it's okay. This is glyphs. This is how I drew it. It's a bit messy. Please excuse some of the Bezier curves. Don't look at that. But yeah, I did this in glyphs. This was the character set. I tried to get that feeling of elasticity a little bit into the the Latin as well, the English ox in a box. So I printed it out, tested it out, and hey, it kind of works, kind of fits, and we ended up with, okay, sorry, before that, yeah, we had the design, we were very happy, we sent it to the printer, we had it foiled, we had it printed, we had it die cut, but we realized the next problematic step was actually assembling it, because it was very tedious. It was all glue tabs. There were no locking tabs, meaning I had to apply glue on all these little things, fold them in a particular sequence, and then attach the head, and then there's a rubber band there. And in doing 1 or 2 mock-ups is fine, but doing 400 is a different story, I think. So it took over my bed, like my bed behind me. It's just like full of cows at one point. But hey, I think this was like a good coping mechanism for the pandemic, I hope. Is this a video? Yes. Okay. Ah yeah, this is the final thing. This is my favorite color. Yay. We printed like 5 colors, 5 paper colors. And it's interesting because different paper colors had different reactions to the glue. So always test. You must test. So, the box was designed so that it holds down, so it keeps the tension. and not fall apart. These are the ang paos, yeah. Pupu Kaosen is step by step going higher. I'm bad at translating, but yeah. These are the colors, the spinning cows. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It got us a lot of recognition and people loved it. Like jumping cow, wow. And this set the bar really, really high. I mean, my own bar. So that's problematic as well because I had to top it. So yeah, the paper plays so much a role here. So it's very gorgeous. So yeah, this is number 5. Get your hands dirty, meaning like just to use your hands for things. So after the Ox in the Box, I had to do another one for this year. And I need to do another one, and I had to like, I can't just do a mediocre one after that. I need to like top myself. So, oof. So the pressure was there, and so it was the year of the tiger. This is the year of the tiger. So we needed to make something tiger-ish related. So I thought of Tigger, Tigger and his springy tail. Yeah, I hope you guys are familiar with Tigger. He's a tiger that bounces on his tail. It's like springish. So yeah, that spring-like mechanism, I thought that was really interesting and asked myself, could I translate that to paper? So I came across this mechanism once. It's called a paper bellow. Bellow as in like a thing. So this really amazing guy, Rob Ives, he makes paper automata, paper witchcraft that like moves and like it's basically engineering about paper. So very interesting. He like this one on the left, it's actually a whistle. So when he pushes it, like the air channels through these little channels and it kind of makes a sound. Or this one is a puffer which kind of like channels air out of this spout to clean your desk or laptop, whatever. Really amazing stuff. But this is really hard to do. I did it once. It took way too much time out of my life. So I kind of simplified it. I made it a what would you call that? Sort of a square tube thing. Yes, a square tube, a beam, a square tube thing. So there's only 4 sides. There's no like hexagonal thing. And so this is how it kind of looks when it's non-pleated. And then once you pleat it, it's like that. So I'll show you the process later. It's quite painful. I want to share my pain. This is we came up with this. So this is like a little tiger thing, with a head and a tail. So there's three parts. I'm very happy to be able to make the tail and the head like out of one piece each. I used a lot of tricks there. Of course, typography, this is the talk. So I decided to put the foot in the middle, which means like prosperity. And so like the action of stretching it is like you're stretching the prosperity, you're like expanding it. And these strokes were actually deconstructed strokes of the Chinese word for who, tiger. So it's all sort of, it has meaning. And oh yeah, so I tend to do this. I always make the toy and then I forget to do the ang pao. It's like, oh yeah, right, that's the main point of it. So for the ang pao, the red packet, I wanted to mimic the pleated body of it, the dynamic motion, the very edgy look of it. So what I did was, this is where like getting your hands dirty comes in. It's you. I printed it out a really, really stretched Chinese character. I creased every single line and I sort of like gathered it together, sort of like this. And the effect that it created is very interesting. I really liked it. It's, see, kind of like edgy, jagged. It's sort of tie-dye-ish, not really. It's also very, it's almost, it has like so much energy just like looking at it like this. It was really fun to play with. So I also made little trays. Hold on. Okay, little trays to hold these things, so I could like arrange them and see how they look once they are warped. So this is a very analog way of warping typography, which is quite fun. The yeah, so like we tried a bit. Oh, okay. I tried to digitize this in glyphs, but I realized that it's really inaccurate and it kind of bugged me a little. But this was just a test, so it's fine. These were some of the sketches that we had prior to it. So on the left, you can see a bit of the ang pao, like some ideas. You want to stretch it like this? How many characters in there? How whack do you want to go? And we had this like matrix that like, okay, which ones do you like? Do you want the S one? You want the N one, the U one? So we picked and choose, and we sort of went with that. But eventually we sort of changed the font from like a sans serif Chinese font to a more serifed one. So you can see we changed it to this to match everything else. So I ended up using like a envelope distort function in, what do you call that, Illustrator. It's very tedious, but you know, it works. So again, the math, you need to be careful. It's very good to document like the steps that you took, like what you did at this point, this point, this point, so that in case you need to go back, at least you have a copy. So, you know, copies are free, just make as many as you want. So yeah, the ang paos ended up looking like this. So it's quite interesting, the process. It starts from like an analog sort of warping, then trying to digitize it and like trying to tweak here, tweak there, and it becomes like this. There's a very dynamic sort of movement in each of these ang paos. What is this? This is the assembly process. So of the final tiger. So let me just bring you through how I did it. Like we glued it. This is the body of it. We had to pre-crease everything. I think there are like 20 over creases. It's too many creases, but then we fold in the edges, the ends, because you want to duplex those to be more sturdy. Then comes the creasing. So carpal tunnel is a big risk here, and especially in this industry. So please stretch your wrists. I sprained my wrist doing this, so please stretch. No project is worth it. And yeah, so these are two. These are the head and tails. They were like made out of one piece, which makes things really easy. And really happy to say that there are no glue involved in like the head or tails. So that, because I was traumatized by the ox in the box, so no glue, no more. Glue just makes things messy. There's so much room for error. And yeah, what is this? There we go. This is like a little close-up of it. We use like gold foiling on textured paper. Use the paper that's slightly textured. It feels rough, just like a tiger skin in theory. Pictures. Oh, sorry. There we go. Say how we engage like this amazing photography studio to take for us. Lots of colors, lots of color variations. Even this box was like a pain to design because it. Let me show you. Because you see, when it opened, it needed to open flat. The top bit was flat. It doesn't tip over. It doesn't like, you know, it's always flat. So I think I did some secret magic in there, which I'm quite proud of, but I cannot reveal. So yeah. So yeah, that was the tiger project, which also got us a lot of recognition. Like people were like, whoa, wow, you guys are crazy. It's like, yeah, damn, that's right, we are. But yeah, so next year it's the year of the rabbit, and I'm like sweating. I'm not sure if this yeah, I mean, you know, we'll see, you know, things turn out the way it turns out. So number 6 is to learn. So outside of a university setting, once you graduate, it's quite jarring because you've been learning like a good chunk of your entire life, and then suddenly poof, like, it's no longer learning focus, it's more results focus, profit focus. You want to please the clients, and so there are very little opportunities for you to like really sit down and learn things unless you really like find time. So like you also, it's very useful for you to learn different ways of learning. It's quite meta, but so doing all those paper stuff at home during the MCO gives me a lot of like these weird offcuts, very weird scraps of paper that I have no idea what to do, and it feels so painful to just throw them away. So I decided to try my hand at pop-up books. So if you guys are not familiar with pop-up books, I'm sure you've seen one somewhere. So like, for example, I'm showing it on my camera. It's like this, it's a pop-up book, and it kind of opens up. It's like, whoa, there's a scene that comes up. So like things like that. I was quite interested in it's the paper mechanics and also the deployability of it. It folds flat, which I'm so happy. I like things that fold flat and can be kept. So I embarked on this project on making 36 typographic glyphs, meaning alphabets and what's that word, numerals out of pop-up mechanisms. So let me show you a quick video. Does it play? There we go. Yeah, so this was in conjunction with 36 Days of Type, which is an online challenge to make 36 different glyphs over a period of 36 days. So I made sure everyone was like a different mechanism, and it became like a little ritual that I did. Like every night I'll come back, I'll just kind of like tinker with the little scraps, come up with ideas. And it really taught me a lot about the limitations and how like pop-up works and what it can and cannot do, how to express letters in this format. Your viewing angle is important, your material is important, the size of your characters. I wasn't really focused too much on the design of the actual letter form, but I let the medium sort of inform how it looked at the end of the day. So yeah, this is just like an experiment that I was doing, and I think I'll be exploring this a bit more in KL Art Book Fair. I'm having a little booth, I'm selling flowers, pop-up flowers, casual plug. But anyway, yes, so just finding like different ways to learn things, like using different stuff, it's quite fun and interesting as well. So number 7, I think I'll go a little quicker here. Just to forget the idea of perfection. I mean, we always try to strive for it, but don't let it consume you. So have you guys ever noticed these signs in like hypermarkets or supermarkets? These days it's mostly printed like this, stretched to hell, but there are some handwritten ones which are quite charming. So this is in Maiden. And you kind of notice a pattern when it comes to the lettering, right? You see the A's, you see the W's, and the G's. The G's are important. Let's look at the G. It looks like a 6 with a line there. This is in Giant, which also is a bit wilder, but it's like kind of similar. So I got really curious, like, oh, who on earth is writing all these great stuff? Because it's a part of Malaysian vernacular type or rather lettering that's not really been documented. So I actually went and interviewed these guys and found out, like, I saw how they wrote and understood their backstory a bit. This is actually for my final year project. This was one of my final year project. So yeah, I interviewed these guys, took a lot of videos, and they gave me some samples, which is really great. It's very weird walking out the hypermarket with the signs. The security guard stopped me once, like, what are you doing? It's like, they gave it to me. So yeah, this was like the specimen. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Look at that 6 and the G that's like mirroring that 6, that different angles. So I analyzed them. Like some are taller, some are shorter. But the angles, the logic is quite similar for most of them. Then I also tried replicating it. I mean, I'm not like an expert of this, but I tried my best to sort of replicate what they had. And I wanted to make a full typeface for my final year project. I know one of you guys are doing it too. So I wanted to introduce a lowercase. So you can see my attempts at using the same logic and chucking it into a lowercase. It sort of works. So next is the really, really annoying part where, because I think I wasn't that confident with my design choices back then, so I flip-flopped a lot. Like you see like this style, should I go with this or this or this? What kind of contrast do I need? What kind of weight do I introduce? So yeah, that took a while. I asked a lot of people. Everyone gave different opinions. So in the end, I think the decision is on you, on the designer, to understand. I mean, accept criticism, accept comments, but also choose what you want to accept and implement into your design, because that's your decision making makes your design. This is what I ended up with during my graduation. So I got this. I even made like a specimen book, which sort of mimicked the what do you call that? Hypermarket grocery stuff. Cans, stick chewing gum. Yeah, and that's me. So this thing is this was actually featured in It's Nice That as well. It really shocked me. But the problem was I wasn't really satisfied with the font when they featured it. So I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'll do it for exposure, because it's really nice to have Malaysian in the headline. And I think that's a big win. Since then I've been working in like so many versions. For your information, UFO is like a unified font object. I was using RoboFont before I moved to Glyphs. Yeah, so many versions, and I've got like a lot of identity crisis, and it's still ongoing. This was like earlier version, this is like one of the later versions. So I made it thicker, I worked out the contrast, I changed the whole structure of some of the letters actually, and yeah, especially the A. The A looks more A-ish. So even though I've diverted from the original writing, again, you have to see it in the context of what you're designing for. If it's a font, it needs to be legible. So sometimes sacrifices must be made. So yeah, this is like lowercase. It's really nice when you blow it up. You see the details. You almost feel like the marker is moving. At least for now. I mean, sometimes I wake up and feel like it doesn't look that good, but it's yeah. So this is a work in progress. I thought I showed this even though it's not finished, because I think the process is quite interesting, and it's quite dear to me because it's been going on for like so long. It's almost like part of my life. It's my longest relationship ever. Anyway, yeah, to be continued, this one. Okay, this is like one of the last ones. It says design your designs and live your lives. So yeah, I think hustle culture is it's common in this industry, where it's like, okay, you need to work your crazy, you need to work sleepless nights, and like in order to be a good designer. But for me, I'm saying that you don't need to, you shouldn't. Although you are like, yes, you are a designer, but you are also a human being, a person, and that you should live your life, and you should let your life enrich your designs, and then the designs will enrich other lives. Yes, you must experience the world to design for the world. So that's a very important thing to remember. Work-life balance. Do not forget. Even as students. Okay, what is this here? Oh yes, this is why I designed. This is why I designed for these two cats in a box playing with my little thing. This is why I designed. I also designed for people who take selfies at Licky Chan, seeing my design there. I do my designs for that, for this moment where people look at the ox and they like smile, they chuckle. I do it for this dog too. This is amazing, so cute. I love it. And yeah, I mean, I do it for like people, like these workshops, like sharing knowledge, people having fun together doing type. Yeah, I would like to just end this with saying like the going back to the title of my talk, like some type of graphy. So like the suffix graphy is actually, it means like, a process of drawing, writing, recording. Oh no, I can't read because the bar is blocking me. Oh. There we go. So it's like an art or science concerned with such a process. So like there's geography, there's typography, calligraphy, and it also denotes like some sort of mastery. So basically what I'm encouraging is that you should find some type of graphy and then make it your own. And yeah, I think that's it for my presentation. Yay. Thank you guys for listening. Yeah. I see the chat is like really.
Thank you so much. Wow, honestly, if you look at the chat, they're just as impressed as I was. And I think now I've never heard a truer statement that graphic design is just a small dot in a big Venn diagram. Like, it's amazing how design is just the beginning, and to see it become so extensive in your work, it's really, really cool. So moving on to some questions, if you can type it in the chat if you have any questions. So there are already some questions in the chat, so I'll read them out to you and then you can answer them.
Okay.
So the first one is, what considerations go into making a design decision when designing typefaces?
I think there are a few. So there's like technical and aesthetic stuff. So firstly, technical is like, where is it going to be applied on? For example, if you're doing something that needs to be on signage, it needs to be legible, it needs to be, if it needs to be produced in like, let's say metal or something, it needs to be like sturdy enough. Aesthetic wise, I think it depends on the story you want to tell. Let's say if it's a brand that's I mean, like Licky Chan, for example, they wanted to be edgy ice cream brand. So it had to sort of show that, give that feeling of being edgy. Yeah, with Pasaraya, it was more like I wanted to bring that sort of writing style, that sensibility, the density of it into a digital format, basically. Yeah. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. So the second question is, does maturity and experience in design play an important role in your design decisions? And if so, how do students overcome this disadvantage in design decision making?
I actually think it's not. I think that students have an advantage on this because, you see, I think the more you work in the industry, the more you are very, you tend to sort of fall back into the things that you know that works. Like, for example, I know that box kind of works. I will reuse that box, for example. So I think as a student, like having that sense of not knowing is very powerful, like to explore new ways. Like, for example, when I did the Ox in a Box, I had zero idea on how to do that. And that not knowing is very important. Because like you won't fall back on something you know works, and it tends to be the boring part.
Yeah.
But yeah, not knowing.
And so moving on, why is documenting your process important to you?
What? No, it's so important. Look, if someone asks me to make a talk like this, I need to show them. but also it's for myself. Also, it's nice to look back and see like, oh, okay, that's how I did it back then, and maybe I can be better. In a more like team setting is very important. So because sometimes projects get tossed like between designers, and sometimes they need to go back a few steps to edit what you've done. So that having like copies of that process helps as well.
Yeah. And then so moving on, so how did you learn how to do the pop-up paper mechanisms? And there's so many varieties of it. So how did you learn how to do all of them?
Oh wow. I have there's like I have a few books. There's let me just show you. I have it here. How convenient. So there's this one here. It's called Pop Up by this guy. It's called Duncan Birmingham. So he actually has a YouTube channel that sort of goes through every one of his things. So that actually helped a lot. There's a lot of resources online. Bless the internet. So I basically like watched and tried and used my scrap paper to mess around with it. So yeah, I guess another lesson is to stand on shoulders of giants. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So are you an artist or an engineer while designing type, or both? And should all type designers be from sketch to from the sketch process to the final font?
I like type design because it sits at that weird spot. It's like you're neither really truly like artist or truly designer. Although there are roles like font engineers do take the font designer's font and they optimize it for production, as in coding the scripts. But yeah, I it's very hard for me to say that I'm either one, and I don't want to, because I don't like putting myself in a box, unlike those cats. Sorry, there was a second part to this question. What was that?
Should all type designers be?
No. Do whatever that you like, but I feel that if you're doing a typeface, it helps so much to start on paper, because if you look at the history of type, it all starts on paper. It comes from calligraphy, it comes from hand, and the hand moves a certain way that you might not be able to get if you like just draw it from Bezier curves. So having that calligraphy base helps with establishing like the right contrast and just overall letter harmony. Because like for years we've been I mean pre-digital, we've all been using like calligraphy inspired stuff. I mean, we're used to seeing that sort of contrast. It's like sort of almost hard written in us at this point. So it's good to start with paper lah. I would encourage it. Calligraphy helps a lot.
Yeah, thank you. So do you think we should always add a human touch to type, or should we allow software to 100% eliminate human error and visual imperfections?
I mean, no. I feel that it is a human thing, because end of the day, you are designing for humans, and humans are imperfect creatures. Our eyes play a lot of tricks with us. So like, I think you can look into the history of like Futura, for example, like, or like Bauhaus-ish, like how even though you think that the Futura is always like perfectly circle, is not actually circle, because they sort of account for your human perception. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. And I think this is the last one here. What are your suggestions for beginners in typography?
Suggestions for beginners. Okay, when I was a beginner, I think I was the lecturer at that time, Mr. Ken. He kind of made us to write calligraphy. That was my first sort of introduction to it. We were writing like italics, and I think that formed like a really important base when it comes to designing letters, because sometimes you don't really know like where should be thick, where should be thin, and understanding how writing came about. I think just writing in general doesn't even have to be calligraphy, and how that writing sort of jumped into the metal type printing and jumped into the digital age. I think that would help inform like what to do. I also read a lot of books on type. There's this one. Sorry, the question is typography, right? Yeah. There's this one called Elements of Typography. Hold on, I'm still sharing screen, right? Okay, maybe I can actually. This one is like the Bible. Oh, sorry, it's not typing. Elements of Typography, Robert Birminghurst, I think. Oops, there's a typo in typography. Haha. Anyway, so this is the book. I found really enlightening. It's very like classical typographic typesetting, but it is so much stuff in there. It's like the Bible. People regard this as the Bible. Yes, so this was one of the books I read. There's another one more technical stuff. It's more like type tricks. Just look a lot. Oh wait, sorry, Sophie. Yeah, this is Sophie. It's this as well. Yeah, I think you just need to try it. You know, it only comes better with practice, lah. The act of seeing, the act of drawing. Yes, practice.
Thank you so much for that. We actually have another question now. So
Yeah, no
how
worries.
do you make sure all the letters in your font are consistent in style?
Oh Lord. Okay, let me bring up like what I had here. It's an example. Basaraya is very schizophrenic, but it's okay. No, let me bring up something else. What else did I have? At Ricky Chan, did I? I mean, for example, for KSK City Labs, it's pretty straightforward because it's sort of modular. So it has a very particular logic on how it approaches corners. So like the S or the O is kind of similar, the B. Okay, this is a bit weird, but yeah. Then I had to make some changes here, but basically you need to see. Yeah, this one is pretty clear cut, huh? It's the logic of it. Licky Chan wise, again it's the logic, like you're sort of designing a universe. You should never see each letter on its own. You should always see it together. I think there are like some things that can always be borrowed. Like you see, like the straight lines can always be the same. The curves can be the same logic, like the D. Sometimes you have to make like slightly different shapes to accommodate the white space, like a white space. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm answering this very well, but I think there are a lot of factors that go into like making a character set that's like unified. Like it needs to be harmonious in reading, like the letter widths. Of course the blackness needs to be the same. And I think with the lowercase, you see it a bit more like the borrowing of other forms, like the A is basically the B, which is the P, which is the Q, the D. So like you just design one and sort of repeat. So repeating is a good thing in type design. If you can manage to repeat something, sure, why not? You know, it'll help with the overall harmony of it. Yeah, I think.
All right, thank you. Just one more. How can you stop refining your typefaces? In which stage do you say this face is ready for production or to be exported?
I wish I knew. I've been working on this for like I said, I think since graduation 2018, so it's like 4 years. So yeah, I think I don't know the answer, but maybe it's being confident enough, or maybe it's the client deadline. Maybe it's but I think, yeah, with the clients one is mostly the deadline. Like I just need to make sure that whatever it's being used for, it looks good.
Yeah.
But for like personal one, I'm like, oh wow, I'm very hard on myself. So I tend to like nitpick a lot and say, oh, when will this ever be finished? I'm sorry, I do not have a good answer for that. No
it's
one does.
okay.
No.
I've read a quote that it goes something along the lines that a masterpiece is never finished, only abandoned. So it reminds me of that.
Yeah, fonts can take forever. It doesn't have to be, but it can.
Yeah. So is there any more questions in the chat? I don't think so. Would someone like to unmute and ask a question? No? Okay, so there isn't any more questions, and I don't think anybody wants to unmute and ask. So I think this brings us to the end of our sharing session. So thank you so much, David, for sharing your amazing experiences. And even just like me, I'm sure everybody is so inspired, and I'm glad that we all got to see just how much extensive design can be. It's just more than what we see on our laptop screens, especially with online learning and everything. So this was really, really just so insightful for all of us. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everybody who came and attended. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Do I stay or do I leave? I'm just gonna sit here for a bit. Yes. Thank you, guys. Oh, it's nice to see the messages.
Yeah.
I haven't really clicked in actually. Like, oh, hello.